Okay, awesome. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Tonight is our night that we do once a month. It's your coaching call, and tonight we are going to be talking about how to have healthy relationships. And I said that we were going to have some special guests, so I'm so excited that we've got a couple special guests here who they have experienced unhealthy relationships and healthy relationships. So, just to give a little bit of information, tonight we're going to be talking about any type of relationship. So, it could be a romantic relationship, it could be friendships, it could be relationships with family members, with coworkers, whoever it is. So, we are going to just jump right in. And so, you apply these things to any type of relationship that you might be wanting to have a healthier relationship, or you might just want to start a new relationship with someone. So we're going to introduce our panel at this time. So we're going to start right here I'll introduce myself. I'm Lori Lockamy, and I'm happy to be here tonight.
Melissa Bana. I'm a contributing CityFam member, and I own Mint and Major.
My name's Rob Kowalski. I'm the janitor of CityFam.
And also a contributing member.
And a contributing member.
I'm Ginny Quinn. I'm a contributing member as well. I'm a life coach, and I work for CityFam as the director of operations.
Hi, my name is Kyle Rigsby. I'm a contributing member of CityFam. I have a private contractor with the military. I'm pretty busy, but regular at CityFam.
So I'm glad that you guys are all here. Thank you guys for agreeing to be part of this discussion. And we're just going to be very open and honest with what it looks like to have a healthy relationship. So I want to start a little bit with just a small teaching, and then we're going to just jump into a conversation. And one of the things that I truly believe is that there's 4 levels to a healthy relationship, to any relationship. There's 4 levels. There's level 1 is your acquaintance. It's a person that you just might meet. You might see them on the elevator as you're going to work, or if you go to Starbucks, it might be your barista. It might be somebody, could be your salesperson. It could be anybody that you just casually come in contact with. So that's an acquaintance. That's the first level of any relationship. We all start as acquaintances. And then the next level is casual friendships. Those are people that maybe you see it at like a Renegade, or you might see them out at church, or maybe you play sports with them, and you might talk about anything, maybe shooting the breeze about the weather and how they're doing, and not too deep, but very surface conversations. Those are casual friendships. And then there's committed friendships. Committed friendships are people that you are intentional with, that you might say, hey, let's go out for coffee. Let's talk. You might call them on the phone. You might have, you might DM them, or you might text them. It might be something, an ongoing conversation that you have with them, but you're committed to that friendship. That means like if they call you, that you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to talk with them, and that you have a relationship, that there's some give and take that's going on. And then the 4th level, which I truly believe you only have 1 to 3 of these types of relationships for your whole life, and that's called an intimate relationship. And and when I say intimacy, I'm not just talking about sex. I'm talking about just intimate, where you're open, where you're honest, where you're vulnerable with that person. You might not talk to them every single day, but as soon as you get on the phone with them, it's like time has just not stopped. The conversation just keeps going. And those are the friends that that are always going to be there for you, no matter what goes on, and you can be open and honest with them. So these are 4 levels of relationships, and I truly believe that if you don't understand that there's levels to relationships, there's lots of times that your expectations, your boundaries, the way you speak with them, the way you treat people are all going to be jumbled up. So I would really challenge you to look at some of your friendships and put them in categories. I'm not asking you to judge them. I'm asking you to evaluate your relationships, all of your friendships, because some friendships, I truly believe, are not always as, they might not be in the same place as a committed friend, where they might just be acquaintances. So growing up, I know for me, one thing was in my past, I had a lot of unhealthy relationships, right? And I think a lot of times it was because I didn't understand. I was thinking that friendship was a committed friendship, when actually that other person thought it was just an acquaintance or just a casual friend. And I had put expectations that was not healthy on that relationship. And so it's really important that you take a look at all of the relationships in your life and you kind of put them in and assess them and put them in a category, because I truly believe that a lot of times we don't always have a clear picture of what that friendship or what that relationship looks like. You know, for me, when I was dating Chris, my husband, you know, there was a point where our casual friendship, our acquaintance, where we were like, hey, this is cool, this is awesome, we're talking, that was great. And then we started being casual friends, seeing each other at church. That's where we met. And I actually tried to set him up with all my friends. And, you know, I thought we were casual friends, but then we started getting to a level of more committed where we started calling each other, talking all the time, pretty much like just getting in really deep conversations. I started missing him. He started missing me. I just thought he was a really great guy, but I didn't realize it until he wanted more of an intimate relationship with me. And then that's when we started to date. And of course now, you know, the rest is history. We got married, but there's a level of the way relationships are supposed to go. Now, back in the day for me, a lot of times in my love life, I would go from an acquaintance all the way to being sexually intimate with them. And so I bypassed a lot of the other steps, and that's definitely not a healthy relationship. There's lots of times where I was putting myself out there. I wanted that intimacy with someone. I wanted a healthy relationship, but yet there was things in my life that were so unhealthy where I couldn't understand that there was a pattern and that there was actually like different stages in relationships. And I truly believe if you start to look at your relationships and you start to put them in different categories, that you will see that health can come in those relationships. So take a second and maybe get a couple people in your mind, maybe 2 relationships in your mind as we start our discussion tonight, because I believe that there's 6 foundations to a healthy relationship. But I want you to think of a person. Maybe it's a love interest. Maybe it is someone that you might be in an intimate relationship with, or some casual friends. Maybe you're new to town, or new to your work, or something that you want a healthy relationship. So think of those 2 people, and we're going to jump right in. So I truly believe there's 6 foundations to a healthy relationship, and I truly believe that if you can get these 6 foundations down, that you will have a healthy relationship. And so those 6 things are having clear expectations. So your expectations really need to be clear and know what they are. Having healthy boundaries. Boundaries are really great. I think a lot of people think that boundaries are barriers, and that you feel like when somebody puts a boundary in, that they're trying to put a barrier up. Boundaries protect. They are ways that we each have kind of like our own personal space. You ever been invaded by somebody's personal space and you can kind of feel it? So boundaries are there so you know if somebody has crossed the line. Boundaries are healthy. Boundaries for both parties are very healthy. And then self-care. I truly believe for me, I didn't have self-care. I didn't process all of the past and the abuse and the addiction and all of those things in order to have a healthy relationship. So I would jump from, hey, what's up, to a really intimate relationship with somebody, and I wasn't getting the return. And I wasn't, it was something that wasn't filling at all. So self-care is really important. Self-care is also taking the time for yourself and saying no. No is not a cuss word. It's one of the best words in the world to say, and it's a full sentence. So saying no sometimes so you can take care of yourself is wonderful. So we're going to talk about that. Honesty. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Fierce Conversations, and it says every relationship lives or dies by a conversation. So every conversation we have, it's either going to produce a healthier relationship or it's actually going to regress us into a relationship that's dying. So really being honest and open, and honesty is a really, really great factor. And then selflessness. So I truly believe if you're selfless and you give of yourself, not where someone's taking advantage of you, but where you're giving of yourself and that person's giving of themselves, I truly believe that you're going to have fulfillment. There's so many times, like my husband doesn't like gold, and this is a very crazy thing, but he doesn't like gold, and he just doesn't like it. So guess what? I don't really wear it that much because I love the fact that I want to please him. It's not about me when you're in a marriage. It's about him. It's for me. It's about him and him to me. So really, it's in the little things where we say, you know what, even this is my preference. I want to please him. You know, it doesn't mean that I'm super submissive. Trust me. Vulnerability, and you know, is the other one. And so how can we be vulnerable in a relationship? And vulnerability is something that I truly believe that we all want to accomplish at some time in our life. We all want people to see us, that deepness inside of us, who we really are, not what the world always sees, but who we really are in our hearts. And I think that's really important. So we're going to jump into this conversation, and so I'm going to ask you guys some questions. Okay, so expectations. So anybody can answer. When was the time that you didn't have realistic expectations in a relationship?
Actually, I can think of something.
Okay.
So when I was married previously, and then we became separated, I kind of got mixed up what to expect from relationship, like husband-wise versus friend-wise. And I had a friend, and I kind of started expecting him to do the same things that my husband did with me, or my ex-husband at that time. And it wasn't fair to him, because I was expecting him to, I don't know, help me with my car and help me with, just everything that I expected my ex-husband to do. And it's not what a friendship does. So I don't think that it wasn't healthy at that time. Mm-hmm. So I had to kind of take a step back and take a look at my expectations, and is this realistic for me? And so I got disappointed a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it breeds unrealistic expectations. It breeds a lot of hurt. It makes us feel like we're rejected also.
Exactly.
Yeah,
definitely.
And sometimes it's because of us and not them.
Mm-hmm. Right. It more had to do with what was in my head than theirs. So.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I've avoided a lot of that kind of headache by having no expectations, which is just a different kind of problem for any of those 4 types of relationships. If you're trying to pursue an intimate relationship, you probably wouldn't be in one. You'd be in pursuit of one from a casual or committed friendship if there were no expectations, because you probably wouldn't know that person well enough. You'd have to form some expectations at that point, but friendships are probably a little bit more common in trying to date and become committed friends at that point. But if you don't have any expectations, anything they do is acceptable, anything they don't do is acceptable, and then you're trying to adjust to, okay, well, they don't do this thing, I guess that's just fine. They keep doing this, I guess that's just fine. And sometimes it just ended like, whatever, again, no expectations. Right. So you don't even expect it to last. And then sometimes you get disappointed with, really didn't know this about myself, but I've learned that there's some things I'm going to need out of you, and hopefully there's something they'll expect out of me, because you also don't want somebody that has no expectations of you and everything you do is okay. Because people are not robots. Right. Eventually you're going to hit something where they say, I didn't know this about myself, but I do have expectations, and you're leaving me unfulfilled. Mm-hmm. Right. And then it's real awkward.
Yeah.
And it just has to end, or a dramatic change has to happen.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. When was the time that you didn't have realistic expectations in a relationship? So everybody, I forgot to tell you, speak up real loud so they can hear you too.
I hope that was loud enough.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Teresa said yeah. You want me to read it again?
No, I'm just thinking. I feel like I'm not saying I feel like my expectations are realistic. It doesn't mean people meet them all the time. I've been disappointed, definitely, where you give to people, or, pour into someone, and then it creates expectation. Even if you're not starting out you could have pure intentions where you're like just trying to help another person, but at some point you do have an expectation of them to do something back. And if they don't, it just creates a wedge between you and that other person, which to me, I just feel like everything is such a balance, like the way that, I believe God set everything up. It's the same as exercise. If you don't work out, you get out of shape. If you don't pour into relationships, invest, you don't have close friends and you suffer. It's the same thing. So when I see people that don't give, I'm like, they're hurting themselves, but I'm quick to call it out too, sometimes. I don't know if it's my expectations were unrealistic or.
Sometimes you can be over optimistic. Like
I could be.
Right.
Like you and me have probably had a couple scenarios where, and I'm sure you have too, where you helped this person get to a place where they needed to be, and they didn't pick up the ball.
Yeah.
And you're like, how many times do I have to keep handing it back to you?
I'll give you the shirt off my back, but at some point, I'm going to win. Well, not only that, but I'm going to expect you to, step up. And if I need you, then I'm going to expect you to step up, and if you don't, I might not give you the shirt off my back the next time. You know what I mean? And I don't know. That's just real.
We also think we want people to think the way we think,
right?
And our life experiences are so different. And so when we have those expectations, like if something happens, this is how this person should have reacted or should have done, but they didn't. It's not because they're a bad person. It's just because maybe their experience hasn't trained them or shown them that that's the way you act in that situation or that's the way you react. So I think for me, my expectations are always unfulfilled because I have a tendency to think like, oh, people should do this way because that's like just good manners. Well, some people didn't grow up with good manners, So I think it's adjusting your expectations to realize that all you can be in control of is yourself.
Right.
You can't tell people what to do or how to react. So I think that's where I've experienced it the most.
I think that this is where conversations have to happen of your expectations. If you feel like you're constantly being disappointed, maybe you're not setting your expectations clear and you're not letting them know. So they're assuming, you're assuming, and
nothing's being done.
Nothing's being done. Yeah. Exactly.
And that's where like conversations are really important. So having clear expectations and saying what your expectations are. I think we're in a culture where we should, like you said, Melissa, like we should expect people just to do. If I do this, you should do this. But the fact is that we were all raised different. Our experiences and our backgrounds have led us to where we are. And I truly believe that saying it up front, this is what I expect out of a relationship, or this is what I'm looking for, and putting it out there, I don't think that hurts at all. Like our nature is not to communicate at all, or to communicate and not be clear. So I think when you're clear with your communication and you say, hey, this is what I'm really looking for. Okay, let's just talk about dating for a second, right? I truly believe that when you date, you should put it out there. This is what I would like to be treated this way. Like Dr. Phil always says, we teach people how to treat us, and I absolutely believe that, right?
I agree with that.
We teach people, so you should really just say, this is what I'm looking for, So I had lots of relationships where I did not put out clear expectations. And I was thinking, you should just know that. You should know I like flowers. Why didn't you buy them for me? You know what I mean? Or I'm expecting this birthday party and you didn't do this, which was ridiculous. Nobody reads minds. And I think like sometimes as women, we want men to just like read minds. But are you guys mind readers?
I wish.
You wish, right?
I wish I'd be
Why
a
aren't you?
billionaire
That's
by
right.
now.
You would, right?
Yeah.
But I think lots of times, and I'm just talking for the women, I'm not saying men don't always think women should be mind readers, but I think we have to be clear. So expectations, to have a healthy relationships, we need to have clear expectations and put them out there. There's nothing wrong with saying, this is what I would like to see happen. There's nothing wrong, because that's being true to yourself, right? And sometimes people, they're not going to meet the expectations, and that's where grace comes in. I truly believe grace is so amazing, but at least you're being honest and open and saying, this is what I would like to see happen, right? I think that's really important. Me and my husband, we meet once a week, and we have a marriage meeting, and in the marriage meeting, we literally put out and we talk about our expectations of each other, and we're very clear with it. So expectations are great. Boundaries. So let me ask you guys something about boundaries. Tell me about some personal boundaries that you have put in place when it comes to relationships. So remember, any type of relationship, any type of friendship.
Well, for me, I mean, I definitely start off always with people as acquaintances. in the sense of getting to know them slowly, and then those personal boundaries are just not going from 0 to 100, not having those expectations that this person who I want to build an intimate relationship with is on the same level. So I think for me, boundaries are super important. I mean, I'm not inviting you to my house if you're not an intimate friend.
Right.
That's a huge boundary for me.
Yeah.
Because if I'm inviting you, and I just had this conversation with someone the other day who was sitting on my couch, I'm like, if you're sitting on my couch, you're an intimate friend. You know, you're somebody, or if I'm coming to your house, we're intimate, we're friends, like we're going out of our way for each other. And so I think that that's really important. I try to really just I just say take my time with people. That's my boundary, is really get to know people more on a surface level first, and then decide if I want to dive deeper. And you dive deeper based on common interests and all those different things. I think sometimes we have a tendency to dive deeper before we even know who a person really is. And that can hurt us really bad.
Absolutely. Well, definitely second what Melissa said. Used to be very wide open with everyone. You know, everyone was invited to everything, and you know, just very accessible, and it kind of came back and bit me. So I've kind of tried to be a little bit more cautious about going 0 to 100, like she said. But two other things come to mind. One is I turn my phone off at night because I want to sleep, you know, and sometimes people will call or text me in the middle of the night, and I'm not, honestly, I don't know how, if that's right or wrong. You know, some people, you know, say, you know, you pick up in the middle of the night, but for me, I need to sleep, or I'm not good for anybody. So I do that. And then the second thing is with females. I don't spend time alone with women in private, because just out of wisdom, really, just with my past and everything, and just trying to keep myself pure. I have real strong boundaries as far as that goes, where I just don't do that. Just try to prevent any, you know, mistakes from happening.
That's smart.
Yeah. It's not easy, to be honest. It's very difficult to keep those boundaries, because you know, it's comfortable. It's fun, actually, to just chill with somebody, you know, like even if it's not sexual, just to, like, you know, but it's hard, but it's safe. It's very safe, and it's kept me safe for 3.5 years now. So, but it's not easy to maintain, you know, because you got to go to bed depressed. You got to always be by yourself. But when you're watching that movie at home, like, it's, you know, there's times where, but at the same time, this is why, in my opinion, 97% of the population don't make it till marriage. Only 3% wait, which is, to me, is waiting is a very selfish decision, because I want to make sure that I end up with the right person, and that's the way for me to test myself. But I don't think people don't keep good boundaries. So they might have good intentions. They started out like, hey, yeah, I'm going to do this, and they don't keep strong boundaries because they're so hard to keep that they end up, you know, hooking up and whatever. So,
boundaries are, but you're driven, like you're driven by your passion of, you know, why waiting works. I mean, of course, you know, everybody knows you. Hopefully, you know, Rob wrote a book, buy it. It's great. You can go on Amazon. Unshameless plug, or shameless plug. So, on a shameless plug. Shameless. Yeah.
No shame. You got no shame.
No shame. Say it. But but I think you're also, like, boundaries are so true, because you can't wait if you don't have boundaries.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean,
Me and Chris are fleshing out the small group curriculum, and this week, Thursday we met, and I forget the quote, but it basically said the size of your boundaries is basically determines the value of the thing. Like, the more valuable the thing, the bigger the boundaries. I was like, man, that's powerful. Like, so if you had something that was worth millions of dollars, you're going to put some real strong boundaries around that. Now, if you don't value that thing at all, you're like, whatever, you just, you know, throw it on the counter, you know, like, and that's the way people treat themselves.
Yeah.
They don't value themselves, and they have no boundaries, and they're like, whatever, here, have it. And then they wonder why they get hurt.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Boundaries have their natural place in most relationships. It's just, I think I'm thinking along the same lines as you, from a different perspective, a lot of my expectations and boundaries are kind of in development as I figure out who I am.
Right.
And it's not just with the intimate relationships, be them sexual or familiar or whatever, when you have to have healthy boundaries. Like a parent to a child, you have to eventually let them fly
Right.
from the nest and respect those healthy boundaries. But even in committed relationships, the difference between casual and committed relationships is that boundary of you let people way too close to your heart and like, oh, we're boys, we're like this,
We're
and the other one's just kind of
BFFs.
like, I'm going to enjoy the benefits that come with getting access to you,
Right.
and like, man, we're having a really great time. And then suddenly that person just kind of dips, and you're like, what happened? I thought we were like ride or die. And they were like, I mean, you were really cool to hang out with. I don't know why. Like, I had a friend when I first moved here, before I met any of you guys, really great guy. Never had a bad time with him. All he ever did was invite me to stuff. And every time I went, I had an amazing time. And he never asked anything of me except to show up to the next thing. And I haven't seen him in a few, almost a year. But he is always like, hey, where are you? Hey, come hang out. I'm like, I can't really. It's not you, dude. It's just, one, I don't have the time. I don't know how you're going out every single day. You must be, really killing it with the money. But I can't come out. You got to respect my time.
Right.
You got to respect my finances, so to speak. And he just wants me to come out. We don't actually. I don't think this is what you thought it was.
Right.
And it's kind of an awkward situation where I have to very politely be like, I appreciate the invitation, but we're not on the level. I'm not meeting you where you are.
Mm-hmm.
The boundary is there. You don't see it. It's naturally forming. Just like a relationship between a spouse in one relationship and a spouse in another relationship. There's a natural boundary. And every once in a while, somebody somewhere always tries to like reach over the fence. And it's like, okay, no, stop it. But in a less serious manner, sometimes that happens with friendships.
It does.
Yeah.
And it can get
That's
kind of
It does.
hurtful.
And it's funny because I can see it play out with my daughter. She's in third grade, and so last year she was bullied, and it was all about like these girls having unrealistic expectations and no boundaries, and everybody wants to. Everybody, she had a new best friend every day, and all these little girls, they were buying BFF bracelets for each other, and people were getting hurt. And like we learned this stuff in school. We learned how not to have boundaries. We learned how to be everybody is our friend, and that's not really true,
Because you're a limited resource.
right? Yeah.
You can't be friends with everybody.
You can't. So this brings us to our next thing: is self-care. Give us some tips, right, on how you take care of yourself emotionally and mentally and physically, so you can have healthy relationships.
You sleep. You said sleep.
Sleep.
earlier.
You said
Yeah.
sleep.
Sleep is so good. But then on the flip side, you've heard the saying early to rise, early to bed is good for you, but it makes you socially dead.
Oh, I've never heard that
I've
one.
never
I
heard
like
It's
that
like,
either.
that was a play on it. Like I think the Animaniacs from Warner Brothers made that joke one time, and it's kind of made me go, "Huh, that's stupid." But then when I thought about it, you do have to have a life.
Yeah.
You can't just treat yourself like a machine. I'm up early. I go train. I go work. I go home. I'm on my grind. I go to sleep. I'm gonna get up and do that every single day, and you will burn out.
Right. I think it has to do with balance. So balancing your personal life, your private life, your spiritual life, all the aspects. I even take like me time very seriously. Like sometimes there will be like a CityFam event or something, and I'll just be like, I think I'm not gonna go. I'm just gonna stay home. To be honest, nothing is wrong, or I don't have any other plans. But I just want to spend time with me because I need that. I burn out so quickly if I don't have that. So I think having a balance in your life where you're not always doing everything on one side or the other, but having a balance in all aspects of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's super important to me. I mean, that was something I learned in, our best year ever is, the areas of our life and just those healthy boundaries also are within yourself. So sometimes we can burn it at both ends. So I do yoga. That's like the one thing that I do for myself, even if it's just once a week. I love to do, facial mask. I mean, it's part of my business, but I love to do facial mask and sit at home. I love my quiet time with God. I love a self-help book. I do, whatever's trending, I'll like dive into that. And it's like my guilty pleasures, but it's those things that you do. I call it the single behavior. It's like those things you do when you're single that you can do when you're single.
Yeah.
So it's like, while everyone's waiting, guys, take that single time.
Right.
It's the best time in your life to be able to do all the things that you're not going to do when you have a boyfriend or a husband.
Exactly.
Because it's going to think you're a complete weirdo when you're sitting with,
For the babies.
or like cucumbers on your eyes and all of those different things. So I love those days. I always say Sundays are my lazy days between like 2:00 and like 6:00. I'm like a couch potato, and I'll do like whatever on Sundays, and that's like my decompression time.
Yeah.
I always say I recharge in solitude.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
So
exactly what it is.
I got a formula that I like to follow for the most part. If I talk to people that are trying to get sober, become the best version of themselves, make significant changes, whatever. If I just do these certain things consistently, everything kind of works out. Because it is hard to become a better version of yourself or make significant changes, and it's very easy to get into like a bad mental space. Like especially when you're single as long as some of us have been, where you just you get it could get depressing. Seriously.
It's only been 2 years.
For me, it's been 6, over 6. So, like, for me, it's if I get up early, I do my quiet time. During my quiet time, I usually visualize. I think about my goals. I picture them as vividly as possible, how I want my day to go, what my life will be like in a few years from now. I try to picture a scenario of my life where maybe I'm, whatever, traveling, new CityFams popping up, going somewhere, speaking, whatever it is. I picture a scenario as vividly as I can. It excites me. I read. I usually read my Bible app in the morning. I write gratitude a few times a week. So I try to write down 10 things I'm grateful for and why. And then I got away from that for a little while. I noticed that when I do it, though, it retrains your mind to look for things to be grateful for throughout the day. Really like that. I try to read read about 10 pages was what I like to read, is about 10 pages of like a self-help book. And then I gotta work. I have to work. I have to work out at least a few times a week. I have to do some life coaching with you to get clear about what my goals are. And I have to go to church every Sunday, pretty much. And I have to serve. I have to volunteer on the regular because I like the way it makes me feel about myself. And then I have to socialize with the right people, because you have to, like Kyle said, you have to have a social life, but it's got to be with the right people, or else you could derail very easily. So if I do those things consistently, I'm good. I don't fall into depression. Now, if I get away from one of those too long, I could very easily, get off course. But and it's not easy to do those things over and over. It requires a lot of discipline to keep that routine up. But that for me is my routine.
Yeah, routine's important. I'm not the same person when I'm off routine. I'm like not good. And so one thing that me and Chris are finding as we keep leading at a different level, and God keeps growing us, is that we decided in 2019, if you're around me, all I do is talk about 2019 because I'm already in planning for that. But in 2019, we both agreed that we are going to take 2 whole entire days by ourselves, meaning that we're going to take a whole day, like drop London off at school, and we're going to go away and for one night and then the whole entire day and come back either by the time she gets out of school. And we're not doing it with each other. We're doing it by ourselves. And so we can, if we want to sleep, if we want to just, for us, spend time with God, for us, for me internally, I love to read, and I only get pieces, like reading a chapter. I want to sometimes just sit and soak in a book, and then sometimes just being in solitude. So we've committed that in 2019, we're both going to do that. We're going to do it during the week, and we're going to pick the days, and we're going to both be supportive of each other. And that's really important for us because we have to be able to have margin in order to process a lot. So, I do think self-care helps you grow and helps you have those healthy relationships. So honesty. Tell me about a time when someone had to have an honest and even a hard conversation with you, and how did that change the relationship? Did it help you grow, or did it hinder your relationship?
Well, I think we've probably, sitting here, we've all pretty
We've all
much
had
those
those
conversations with each other.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to use Ginny as an example. We had like a tough conversation one time. I feel like it brought us closer.
I think so too.
You know, I think that it was complete misunderstanding. We weren't seeing this, we
The
were
same
seeing it
things,
totally
yeah.
differently. But when we finally, instead of, you know, going, you know, off the deep end and talking to everybody else about it, we talked to each other, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is so silly. And
It was silly, yeah.
and we spent our day in New York.
Yeah.
We call it our date day, where we just had the best day ever, where we just got to know each other on, I mean, I've known Ginny for a long time, but it was like more of an intimate one-on-one day, and it really just brought our relationship closer. And you know, and I value that so much, that her as a friend so much, that it was like, yeah, I think it needed to happen in order for us to get to the intimate friendship, which I think it was, you know, what we were looking for from each other.
Yeah, and I can't imagine if we didn't have that,
No,
that
I know.
conversation, then that misunderstanding would still be in my head, be in your
Yeah,
head,
yeah.
and we would still have that hanging on our shoulders.
Totally.
So it's like hard to have those conversations sometimes, but they're so good.
They
They're
are.
So
really,
good.
really good. They're like a weight lifted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for the women out there, ladies,
Yeah.
we all need to continue to have those conversations with one another.
Yeah.
You know, we just came off of a women's weekend last weekend, and we just really had a lot of unity. And I just want to encourage, because, you know, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful for us to, in our friendships, ladies, not to be in competition with each other or allow like our vain imagination to take over. Well, she said this and all that the petty stuff, and really just have honest conversations and put all the crap on the table
Right.
and sort through it and be honest with our feelings. I think that's
Yeah,
beautiful. Any of
exactly.
you both would like to answer that, or either one?
I didn't have anything.
So honest.
I thought that was pretty good. Honesty
I mean,
is,
we've had, you know, even Rob and I've had like conversation. We're very similar in a lot of ways.
No.
And so, you know, we both like our own way. And so,
She
yeah.
just likes to disagree with me.
Yeah, I
pretty
got
much.
to keep him on his
Well,
toes.
it's iron sharpening iron.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it brought us closer,
Yeah.
you know, like, because when you care about somebody enough to have a conversation with them about
Right.
something, that's when real relationships start. If you're just going around, you know, you just agree with me on everything that I say or vice versa, I don't think that's being true to yourself, and it's also not being your authentic self.
True.
So I think that, you know, Rob really loves karaoke, and I've learned how to do
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the opposite of honesty is disease, right? I mean, not honesty, of health, right, is disease. So somebody who's healthy, they don't have disease in it. But what is disease? It's dis-ease. And sometimes like you've got to push through, you know, and being so honest with somebody to pull that disease out so you can have health. And I think all of us, you know, majority of people in the world, we don't want to be honest with each other. And I feel like in order to grow and to truly get to that vulnerability and that intimacy level, you have to tell people how you really feel. And, you know, for me, I'm always being challenged to be just very honest and direct. And I find that it is uncomfortable, right? It is really diseasing. You know what I mean? It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. But when I pull that disease out, it makes me, myself, and that person and our relationship more healthy. So I think it's really important to do that.
Yeah.
So selflessness. Tell us a time in your life when someone was selfless, and how did it affect you and your relationship? And how did you make sure that you were living selflessly towards that person afterwards?
Well, everyone here, to me, has been very selfless in our friendship. I mean, Kyle has literally helped me with every pop-up shop that I've done.
And he looks fabulous.
Yes,
in
he's
every
always the
single
best
one
dressed.
of them. He is the best dressed. I
Yes.
was like, oh, where'd you get this shirt?
You know, but that's the thing.
Fabulous.
It's like, you know, and so has Jenny, and obviously like Rob has helped me move, and so, you know, those are the people, when they call you, even if it's like an inconvenience, you're not going to say no, because you're like, okay, yeah, I gotta go there and pack up and do whatever it is. But it's not even because you feel like you owe them something. It's like you want to do it
Right.
because you care about the people. I feel super blessed because I feel like there's a lot of people, you know, that have been completely selfless with their time, you know, and so obviously if they need anything, you know, I'm gonna show up for them as well.
Yeah, I would honestly, I would say you, Lori, for me, like the first person that comes to mind, just because you've invested in me heavily, but you just, that's just your way with everyone. I think everyone in this room would agree is that you're just a giver. You're always looking for ways to add value to people's lives, and because of that, you have an army of people that would do anything for you. I think about the verse in the Bible. It says, "The greatest among you will be the servant of all," and you know that you know that's you. Like people, they would do anything for you because you're always, like literally, Lori would call me up, you know, at night and be like, "Hey, I was thinking about this problem that you have," and she would give me some solution. I was like, how are you thinking about my problems? Like, I only think about my own problems, and you're thinking about my problems? That doesn't even make sense to me. But so obviously, I'm always just looking to tell people about you. You know, send whatever, any opportunity, anything I can do to help you. Obviously, I want to do it because I know you got my best interest in mind. Which it kind of really goes back to CityFam, which is like, this is how we were meant to live, because it is temporary pain sometimes when you have to kind of stop what you're doing to help somebody else out, but it produces this really close bond between you and that other person. And then when you need something, of course, they stop what they're doing to help you out, or at least you hope they do. But that's really, but how we were meant to live is, you know, in close friendships with each other, where, you know, you're surrounded by a bunch of people that have your back. But it does require something of you sometimes in the moment and the temporary. So, I don't know if that answered the question.
No, it's good.
I'm kind
Thank
of
you for all your
forming
sweet work.
forming my answer as I'm listening. So you said adding value to other people by being selfless to them. You carry out an act of selflessness on the part of someone else, demonstrating their value to you, so that they are a more valuable person. And I also thought on the flip side, because you guys have been pretty selfless to me. You invited me to your, you know, parents' home, and that was like, I'm welcome. You've been there for me a few times and helped me through some personal stuff. Lori has, Melissa has had some really cool, honest conversations with me, where I felt like I can speak my mind and workshop my personal problems with somebody. And I thought, that's cool. They're demonstrating my value to me. But on the flip side, when somebody presents an opportunity for you to be selfless, that's your opportunity to increase your own value. And I was trying to think back on that when I meet new people and I want to get to know them and I want to grow and I want to, it's because I like to fall back on things we brought up earlier in the conversation. I'm trying to like earn permission to cross through the boundary into a deeper relationship. But probably the best way to do that is if I have the opportunity to be selfless. And sometimes it's like, what do you want in, let's say, a partner? Like, well, I want to be of value to them. Like, you give me the opportunity to demonstrate I'm worth something to you.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes it's like, I never get asked to come help.
Sure you do.
No, I'm not talking about you guys. No. To be honest, what I was thinking of was,
She's like,
I got
he's
five
like,
things right now.
He's asking me for
that's not all I was thinking about. I was actually thinking back on like the dating world, because it's like, what's the expectation on me typically when I go on dates now? It's show up, look nice, have like no expectations. My generation is doing it so right. Have no expectations. The fantasy is there are no boundaries between friends or potential intimate partners. And it's just like fantasy land. We're all in a movie. We all meet and immediately we're brothers in arms. It's not real life.
Right.
Honesty. Honesty is kind of a risk, especially if you're not really close to people. And so to be selfless, no one ever asks anybody else to like no one's being, I think about to touch on the next thing, being vulnerable
Right,
enough
go ahead.
to allow someone else to be selfless towards them. Yeah.
I just wanted to elaborate on one other thing. One thing I mentioned about the greatest among you will be the servant of all. That was something I didn't necessarily understand for a long time. Just that statement, that verse, and I think about like if there was, let's say there was an organ in your body that all the other organs it served all the other organs. Like you would say, well, and you ask somebody, what's the greatest organ? Like if I asked you, what's the greatest organ in your body right now, what would you say?
Either my brain or heart.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It really, and it serves all
Right.
the other. And it's like, I guess when you think about the fact that if you thought about the fact that we were all connected, like we're all one body, like trying to perform something, then yes, the greatest one would be the one that serves all the others. You know what I mean? And that's maybe the point, is that we are all connected.
We are.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's true.
Yeah.
I think
We're
it's
also-
also a culture thing.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It's the and kind of
Yeah.
like what CityFam is. What can we do for you? I was talking to somebody who recently just started coming to church and started coming to CityFam events, and they're like, it's so strange that all these people want to do things and help me. I've never experienced this before. And I was like, well, think about it. You know, if you have a room full of people that are all looking outward instead of looking inward, then everyone's going to get served.
Right.
Right? Everybody's going to be helped. If there's a room full of people that are just out for themselves, everyone's just by themselves when they need something.
Absolutely.
You know,
So
it just
true.
comes back. It's a culture, and it's something that not everybody has
Yeah.
ingrained, I think.
They don't.
So you just have to find the right group that, you know, have that, share that culture.
But it's hard to accept that. Kind of going back
Yeah.
to what Kyle was saying. Like, it's hard to be vulnerable. Do you know what I mean? And so, like, you know, for me, it took cancer, literally me getting cancer, like the second time, right? To say, I need help. Like, to learn how to ask for help. I mean,
Yeah.
I was so, like, I can take care of everything. I can do everything. And I'm Superwoman. You know what I mean? I remember writing a blog about me hanging up my cape. And it was very eye-opening for me because of the fact that I thought I could do everything for everybody. But the cancer really taught me, like, I needed people. I needed people at different parts of my life, and I had to be vulnerable and put my stuff out there. And I thought I was a pretty vulnerable person, honestly. But when you have to have somebody come and take care of you, you know what I mean? That is, like, it's very hard. Or when you're, like, you know, having people just, you know, help you hold your head up while you're, you know, barfing in the toilet, or like just whatever parts it was. Like, there was just so many people that reached out to me. There were so many people that made meals, took care of my daughter, my family. Like, there was just so much. And I truly believe vulnerability produces healthy relationships. So let me ask our last questions. How have you experienced vulnerability in a healthy relationship?
Well, I definitely agree with you and what you say. I like pride myself in being like boss babe. I'm an independent woman. The future is female. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna need a man to carry these,
That's right.
these totes or whatever. So I think starting mid-major really, and actually it really began, I think, Kyle, like in small group, like just being so vulnerable, like with my friends that I was in small group with, and not, you know, I remember saying like, Kyle, I don't have it all together. Like, I'm struggling just like everyone
That's a
else.
hard thing to admit.
Yeah,
isn't it?
like,
It's so hard
and
to admit
I think that was like my breakthrough. Like, it's okay if you don't have it all together. Like, it's great if people think that, but your close, intimate friends, it's okay to be vulnerable to say like, no, I'm messed up too. Like,
And it's our opportunity to go, yeah, and you're not a monster.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. Like, right, like exactly. And so I think that I would say over the past 12 to 18 months, I've become a more vulnerable person in the sense of just not being afraid to ask for help and not being afraid to let people know that like I don't have it all together.
It's so weird that you really do have to open up at some point and let some things out before they rot inside you.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because if you
It's good.
you never accept somebody like being selfless to you, and you be vulnerable and you open up and go, I could use a little help organizing a few things. I got this one's over here and I thought it was supposed to be up, and now I'm all out of alignment. If I can't be vulnerable with the fact that I'm a human being and there are things that I want, but I never say I'm trying to do everything myself, because I like to think of myself as a strong, independent woman too. And I don't need no man
Oh
Like,
my.
I got it. I'm a tough. I even have some struggles opening up to my family sometimes.
Sure.
Because there's this expectation of my whole family lives in Alabama, and I'm kind of the one that went out into the world to make it, and I'm killing it at work, and I'm killing it. You know, I bought my own house and just made risks, and after a while, it's just like, how much longer am I going to be able to do this? My expectation is I have to succeed, so I can't tell them. It's like, I'm scared sometimes. I don't think it's going to work out sometimes. I'm on a contract that ends at this date, and what happens after that? Well, don't ask mom and dad, because then they'll be like, what are you going to do? Like, oh great, now you're freaking out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it can be a real struggle to be vulnerable, but when you are, you feel freer.
Yes.
You've let go of the lie of I am the machine and I am perfect as far as everybody on the outside is concerned, but on the inside, I'm this miserable wreck. And when you open up and somebody goes, me too, it's like, oh, okay.
That's exactly what I think. It's tiring because I used to try to be perfect, right? I used to think that I had the perfect marriage, I had the perfect car, perfect house, perfect job, and then but